You're listening to MoobTube, the art house movie podcast for people who are tired of experts. I'm Ralph, and I'm joined, as ever, by Owen. How are you doing, Owen?
Hot and bothered.
It's a very hot day. It's like
really
one
hot day.
of the hottest days of the year.
And about to get hotter.
Yeah.
I've got something I want to play for you.
Clearly, it was one of the biggest failures of our time. It failed commercially, critically. It failed on videotape. It failed internationally. That's Joe Esterhaz, the screenwriter of Showgirls 1995, speaking soon after the film's release. Failure and success are important for Nomi Malone, who hitchhikes to Las Vegas and tries her luck as a dancer at a topless club. She works her way up to the top of a brutal, dehumanizing, misogynistic industry driven by big wallets and bulging crotches. Pushing her way past all competitors, Nomi becomes the star of the show, but quickly discovers what staying at the top will cost her. After the box office hat-trick of RoboCop, Total Recall and Basic Instinct, Paul Verhoeven was hoping to stay at the top too. Things don't always go to plan, but now the film has newfound adoration from a millennial intelligentsia who laud Showgirls for its epic mise-en-scène and blistering critique of patriarchal capitalism. Maybe this kind of ritualistic cult popularity isn't what I intended, said screenwriter Esterhaz years later, but it's like a resurrection after the crucifixion. Owen, were you ready for the second coming?
Yeah, the kind of bukkake of critical acclaim that has followed on from this film. But for me, I didn't see it in the first place, you know. I was a child, like a mere child in 1995, 7 years old. And this was my first viewing of Showgirls. Having spent a lot of time, in Verhoeven's back catalogue and forward catalogue from this film, this is the kind of one piece that I've missed. And it's weird, isn't it? It's strange. After watching RoboCop, Total Recall, after watching Starship Troopers, which are all very much of a likeness in terms of this kind of aggrandizing, hyper-real science fiction, to then see Showgirls, which on the surface is a more conventional kind of rags to riches, and then almost fall from grace kind of narrative set in, the American, I say Midwest. I'm kind of
Las Vegas.
My lack of knowledge. Las Vegas, baby. For Verhoeven, it's kind of one of his most kind of, as it were, grounded films, set in a very real kind of environment, and very real kind of series of cultural reference. Nobody lives in the world of Starship Troopers, as it were.
Yeah, it's not set in space, you're saying.
It's not set in space. This is somewhere you can actually visit. But it's still hyper real. It's perhaps more strange in a lot of ways than than RoboCop and Starship Troopers. It's also, I was saying to you before we recorded, Verhoeven himself is just quite an interesting man in the sense of he has a demeanor and comes across like a standard ICA kind of Berlinale Locarno style auteur, but makes the films that kind of the wet dreams of teenagers, in some senses. And it's this weird dissonance where he's not treated like a kind of purveyor of slashers and tawdries science fictions, partly because it rests on this baked in assumption that what we're seeing is a critique and is a send-up of the things that are being shown. We're not supposed to enjoy Showgirls. We're not supposed to get titillated by Showgirls. Even though Verhoeven himself it's kind of weird because he obviously doesn't give a fuck in a lot of ways, and he's got this genteel manner. So I've watched several. Shall I do my Verhoeven impression?
Yeah, please.
The ladies in these American movies, they leave their bras on when they have sex. What is that about? He's really obsessed with the idea that a lot of American, not erotic films, but like TV programs and like cinema, there's an unreality about it. He's obsessed with like women leaving their bra on during sex, which is this kind of weird point that he circles back to in quite a lot of interviews I've seen when talking about Showgirls.
Yes, in his films I don't see a great deal of bra wearing.
There's probably zero there's like a negative bra wearing environment in all his films, either because they're set in space and I presume gravity would like do the work for it, whatever, lack of gravity. Or this.
Well, I mean, I don't have breaths, nor have I ever been in space.
You haven't been to space.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
You're going to Richard Branson it, and he is being sent into space soon, by the way.
He probably does have breasts.
He might do.
But back to Showgirls.
Showgirls.
I want to push you on this critique hyperrealist thing, because like
hard.
I was like I spoke to someone today about it, a friend of mine, Beth, who said, well, it's just so bad that, like, you know, you obviously don't. And I was just like, hold on a minute.
What, the film is bad, or?
Well, this is the thing. She was sort of saying, like, it's so bad. She's saying it's so bad it's good. Or it's like, it's kind of, you don't, you know, you can't accuse it of being misogynistic because it's, like, just pants. And I was thinking, and then,
yeah.
And I was like, maybe I'm ventriloquizing her, but basically, like, I think it's, like, good enough that it has to take responsibility for what it does.
Yeah, but it's also, it is a satire, and what satire does is it operationalizes it. It climbs inside the skin of the thing, and it becomes it for a while. So what we're seeing with Showgirls, you know, it would be very possible to create a kind of, you know, let's take for example Coen Brothers. The Coen Brothers have a similar project in a sense of a very pessimistic, cynical view of American exceptionalism and American violence, greed. But theirs is very high. You know, it may depict extreme events, something like No Country for Old Men, but it's very real and very self-consciously art film. Whereas this is saying, Verhoeven is saying, I'm going to make and Esthausen is saying, we're going to make a film about Las Vegas, about exploitation, about the commercialization of sex, and its attachment to violence and the proximity to violence. They're saying we can't do that at a remove. We have to embody it and kind of possess that world. And I think this is something I was listening to a podcast recently about Total Recall, about Starship Troopers. Yeah, and they were saying, you know, one of the at the same time, similarly, Starship Troopers was criticized for being fascist and glorifying war and having lots of very overt fascist symbology in it.
Well, then you can't critique anything if you know what I mean.
No,
like,
exactly.
It's like satire necessarily has to exist on the borderline between sincerity and facade and like.
Facade, yeah, but it has to
like the day to day has to be, and Brass Eye have to kind of be. They the reason those things were successful is that they interacted with the world they were satirizing and were kind of mistaken for reality.
Brass Eye he literally had a team, and the people he did his infographics were the people who made infographics for the news. He
and they set up all these celebrities, got them saying things, thinking it was real. Like for satire to work, like when I did that emotional labor app, Shoulder, like I always presented it as like, I made this, and I would never say like I made this video about a fake app, or like I made this app. I would just say I made this. Yeah,
because it's insincere. He's saying the only way to, as it were, is to possess, to ventriloquize the thing is satirizing. And obviously satire fails if it can't be distinguished from the thing itself. So if he had actually made a porn film, a sincere porno, the satire would have been blunted. So within that, he has to ventriloquize its tools and its visual language and everything like that, but he has to intensify it. So the kind of hammy, over-the-top acting, that's not... that is something I feel like he was pushing his acting, and it's something consistent across all his
I have something to say about the acting, but yeah, carry on.
Okay, interesting. Actually, I'd come back quickly to what I was saying about, this other podcast I was listening to, and this self-recursive loop of the panopticon of podcasts.
This is Chapo Trap House.
It is, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I've listened to this episode.
Yeah, it's good. And they mentioned, sort of Starship Troopers is a film that would be enjoyed and consumed in this fascist future society. It's it's an artifact of that world that we're seeing. It's not a film about fascism. It's a film from fascism. And that's the kind of difference. So with Showgirls, it feels like we're very much in that we are getting the lap dance. We're being lap danced by Paul Verhoeven here, because he's supposed to be like challenging us and kind of provoking us, but also kind of making us grin and laugh at it and kind of feel awkward because it is really hammy. There's so many lines. I predicted it when I was watching it. I was like, within a few minutes, I was like, okay, I know at some point someone's going to say to Nomi, you got talent, but you know, you need discipline or something. They're going to say you've got it, but you're too wild. And literally within a few minutes that is said. It's predictable, right? I mean, to go back to more, as it were, Basic Instinct, is this an erotic film? Is it, to use your to drop, you know, kind of plug the newsletter we're doing in your article, Horny on Main, is this a horny film? And is Verhoeven a horny director?
So I believe Verhoeven very much is a horny director, but I think so. Shout out to the essay I wrote this morning that's already getting a lot of traction about directors being horny or not horny. I think I think that Verhoeven is a master of excess, and he also has he can also like make you hard quite easily, like. I didn't really find Showgirls very, very horny though, in a weird way. I because didn't. It was maybe because I just find that whole culture like really alienating. Like Basic Instinct was really sexy, and Basic Instinct was like, like I watched Basic Instinct. I watched loads of. I hadn't really seen much Verhoeven. I'd seen RoboCop years ago, but then I watched Basic Instinct, Total Recall, and Starship Troopers.
You plunged into.
I plunged. So I'm in a way. You know, like last week Daniel was like, I watched House half an hour ago. Like I'm in a way like I have this sort of strange like dazzled authority on Verhoeven. I think Basic Instinct is my favorite film by him so far. Oh
wow, okay.
Because it's just like it makes me. It's horny. It makes me kind of like, I found Sharon Stone really attractive throughout, and I was like, that was like me being attracted to her. And I don't think that's unique. I think you could be not attracted to women and still have that kind of be lured into that. But I was definitely lured in to the narrative via this kind of this like erotic thread of this thread of desire and this thread of curiosity and this kind of fetish of like dangerous woman, sexy woman, you know, like bodies, you know, like take like unavailability, you know, that sort of real fetish of unavailability, which is like the cornerstone now of like most pornography.
But this is in the contrast here is it's grounded in power, agility, dynamism. It's quite full on to watch. So even where it is, this is not a slow erotic film. This is not like a kind of sensual romantic piece. This is in your face, gang banging you in the eyes kind of film, because there's so many moments where it's people leaping around on the stage, ripping their clothes off, fire, burning lights. The production is insane. You know, this was a really expensive film. I think it's $45 million, and with huge, these vast sets, and it's kind of overwhelming. It's this hyper real insanity of mise en scène and action and behavior. It's very hard to keep up with. So even when, you know, the unlikeliness, the uncanniness of this film, in fact, which is that Nomi does go from rags to riches. You know, she's just a stripper, but then goes to audition at this big casino because she's kind of in this weird power play by Crystal, the character Crystal, and Kyle MacLachlan's kind of seedy, pervy emo character. You know,
he's not that seedy. Maybe because I've been watching loads of Twin Peaks recently, but you don't cross the streams, don't cross the peaks of. There's Cooper, and then there's I can't remember the character. Cretin.
This cretin. I think he is supposed to be seedy, or he's lazily seedy, isn't he? But he does throughout the film. He's
complex though. I like. This is what I want to say about acting. Sorry to interrupt you, but like Kyle MacLachlan's character is like. It's really subtly acted to the point where like because there are other characters. The guy who walks in and he's like, I'm a prick, everyone knows I'm a prick, like that's not subtle acting, and maybe it doesn't need to be, but I think it's important because you see so much of the character of Carl MacLachlan's character, like it is nuanced, and he does sort of seem to have some care for the world, or he's like a bit more sensitive than the other people.
Yeah, it's weird you say that, because I wouldn't say the same thing. I think Carl MacLachlan gives a certain energy to, I feel like, all his performances. I mean, maybe you're right, he does have this kind of softness and this openness which makes him a bit more likable, but he's still he's in control in this film, and he plays he kind of actualizes Nomi's path to ascendance, and destroys, or helps her destroy Cristal. And Nomi comes to replace Cristal as the queen of Las Vegas. She utterly destroys her, and he's the puppet master almost behind that. Not to take away from Nomi's agency in this, which is huge, but he is kind of he's prodding her in the right directions, even though she literally dominates him earlier in the film. You know?
Yeah, Elizabeth Berkley. Well, that's all kind of theatre, isn't it? Elizabeth Berkley, who plays Nomi, I thought was just absolutely terrible. And I really think this film, I think we'd be talking very differently about this film if her performance was good.
What is it about her performance that you didn't?
She's just kind of,
relative to the rest of the film,
she overdoes it. She's melodramatic. She's kind of, it almost like she sort of thinks that the character should be played in like a sort of stroppy and like they're just loads of frustrating. Yeah, she's like a prima donna, even though she's in a world where like she kind of doesn't have the right to be, but somehow she manages to like. I mean,
she gets by to use the word spunk, as it were, but like she literally kind of, she has that nervous. I think I was trying to like define this type of character, which is she's, as it were, you know, she's got this raw talent, but she doesn't want to be given a break. She wants to fight for it and work for it, but she's easily wounded. She's insecure. It is quite annoying to watch. She's a very. I really enjoy this film despite her in a way, because she's very aggravating to a presence in the film.
And she's in literally every scene. So like, I just felt like that character could have, if they'd been a bit more nuanced and like the levels that had been turned down a little bit on her character. On her acting, like I thought, and maybe it's in the script as well, but I just sort of feel, given where the other actors were at, that it might well be an acting thing.
But talking about, she was, in terms of her career, she did Saved by the Bell and then did this. You know, pretty much. So in a way, she
and
was
then,
like.
Did she do anything else? Did she have a success?
She's acted since, but kind of like prestige TV vibe. I don't think she's had like a major career afterwards, but I think in a way she was the kind of doe-eyed innocent in the literal film industry of this film, because you had more seasoned actors around her. So she very much is this cub that's got to prove it all, literally, you know, in the narrative of the film, but also in a kind of meta sense in the actual production of this film. But it's kind of there's the unbelievability is part of the charm of it, right? Like, you know, she goes up on stage, she views a few moves and then from the other dancers, and then jumps on stage and is not only as good as them but better. You know, she hasn't seen his routines.
This just gives people the license to talk about this film in kind of like, there's a so bad it's so good take, which is like,
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, no, I don't agree with that either.
Yeah.
But like there's like, oh, it's just really gross and ghastly take, which doesn't understand that it's like clearly representing that world as being toxic and horrible.
It's a dull take. It's uninteresting. Next.
The other take is it's so bad it's good, so like you don't have to worry about the moral content of this film, because like it's just a kind of trash thing that's kind of hilarious, which is like I feel like I hear that about Showgirls a lot. Then there's like the take that it's like actually really subtle and knew what it was doing all along, and like uses these kinds of like strange like quirks of bad filmmaking to its advantage to kind of like create the world it creates.
That's what Lynch does though as well, though, by using
but Lynch would never let someone act as badly as
he wouldn't. And I think
Berkeley acts in this film.
I mean, to be honest,
And his
I
scripture was
entirely see
better.
where you're coming from. Of course, it's apples and pears, isn't it? But I think there's some interest here that Verhoeven can be enjoyed on a base level. Like, I think certainly the first time I saw Starship Troopers, it was before an awareness of this film being, kind of. I think that sometimes in the art film world, there's certain directors who just automatically have this. I think it reflects where they show the film and if they take it on the film circuit. And sometimes if he'd gone through normal distribution, and Showgirls did have a relatively normal distribution, but he's always pandered to the art crowd. And when you do that, I think sometimes the art world kind of likes to think it's in on the joke, and it kind of projects onto it what it believes is there. So here a critique of chauvinism, of greed, excess and capitalism. But you could also watch the film and not come away with that at all. You can watch Starship Troopers and just see it as a really fun film with shooty guns and big explosions. And the same could be said for Total Recall, the same could be said for RoboCop. So it's really Verhoeven's films always, I think, they function in this like ambiguous grey area between this B movie splashy in like kind of basic, as it were, basic instinct, and then this kind of rarefied metacritical level where we're like, oh, actually this is a critique, so okay, I'm in on the joke, I get it, this is a criticism of the very industry it's embodying and representing, even while like benefiting from our enjoyment of it. Because I'm sure if you wrapped this up as if this was marketed as a serious art film, it wouldn't have had half of the legs it does.
There's a lot of legs.
It has a lot of legs. But many legs.
There's this kind of distinction that I think what you're saying is that, like, when the critique and the entertainment feel so enmeshed that you can't disentangle them, is like when Verhoeven works really well, right? So that you kind of keep coming back to it and like it, like with Basic Instinct, I couldn't tell you, like, Basic Instinct, like I said earlier, Basic Instinct really turned me on. I don't think that means that, like, in 20 years time I'm gonna like watch it and see it was all a critique of being turned on. You know what I mean? But I feel like with Showgirls there's this thing of like, people must have really thought it was like there's like, because certain elements of it just are poorly made, there's like this chasm between the moment where it was just considered to be trash and offensive and the moment when like Goldsmiths graduates talk about it being like their favorite film, being like a critique, being like, like Naomi Klein talking about it in No Logo. Like, this had this second life.
It gives it a second life, and it kind of empowers you to talk about things. And ultimately, this is just part of like cultural criticism, isn't it? And I think this film, it does have serious chops in terms of its criticism isn't so enmeshed in a film that it's invisible, because it's very obviously a film where characters' dreams are. Characters are continually exposed to situations of danger and risk and threat. They're exploited. They're thrown around. It's shown to be a very nasty world.
Like women are thrown under the bus. Black people are thrown under the bus. Like, it's everything that's fucked up about society is shown like in a really turned up way, which is quite upsetting in a way. But like, I guess that's sort of the point.
I think so, because you've got for example, the dynamic between Crystal as the kind of the elder statesman of the club, and Nomi is the kind of newcomer, and a newcomer steals her crown and demolishes her. There's quite a good scene where actually Nomi, she pushes Crystal down the stairs and effectively ends her dancing career in that moment, and at the same time steps forward to take her crown. And when Nomi kind of has feelings of regret, sort of, and she goes to visit Crystal in the hospital, and Crystal kind of has let it go, and she's kind of almost relieved that she's out of this world. She gives her hat, weirdly, this kind of scene, and it's kind of like, oh, you can take it. It's almost this relief to be out of this destroying machine of greed and sex and capitalism. not that, and it's not like, because Verhoeven never gives us a tool to dismantle these things. Nomi at the end of the film leaves Las Vegas the way she came in. Literally, there's almost a mirroring of the opening scene. And it's as if the circle is complete and will just continue forever. It's time's a flat circle. This will go on forever. This is a endless, infinite machine that will just swallow up people, use them, and spit them out. And so it's very obviously that. So I think it can be titillated by the film, but I don't think you can completely come away and going, oh, this is good. This is representing a functioning, healthy way to live and way to be.
No, I don't think no one's arguing for that. But it is funny to me that there's like a kind of that with this film more than other films, there's sort of the need to involve it in a kind of or like that
inner criticism in it, to involve it in these discourses.
Yeah, like I really like Fassbinder's films because they lay social dynamics bare. They totally, like Fear Eats the Soul completely shows you in visceral detail how people exclude and bully other people and tear apart each other's relationships through prejudice, or even form relationships through fetishization. And
that's one of the first films we watched together.
Really? Fear Eats the Soul?
Way back. Yeah.
I don't even remember that. Was that at my parents' house?
Yeah. This is like ancient days. It's a long time ago. Anyway, we're digressing.
Anyway, sorry. The listeners will enjoy a bit of reminiscence between two old men.
We're real people. I mean, it's interesting because one parallel I had when watching this was actually David Cronenberg.
Yes. Oh my God. Crash.
And I feel Crash or Existence as well, and these and Naked Lunch, because they're. I mean, Cronenberg is a much more fantastical filmmaker, even when compared against Starship Troopers and RoboCop. They're much in their grit and in their grain and in their dynamics and their material culture. They're much more weird. Like Existence, like the fleshy game console that you plug into, the layers of reality. They're very much more strange embodiments of of the modern weird. But that being said, they feel really similar to me, and they feel like they're sharing a kind of similar language, because a lot of David Cronenberg's films are quite badly acted. Like Jude Law in Existence is wooden as hell, right? It's extremely Jennifer Jason Leigh and Jude Law in that film, everyone in it, even Ian Holm, Willem Dafoe, it's just full of incredible R.I.P. Ian Holm, not William Dafoe. William Dafoe's still alive and well. And
famously large penis, I'm told.
Really?
Do you know this story about William Dafoe? That on the set of Antichrist, all the cast and crew were told just beforehand, just so you know, just so don't make any faces. But when it's quite large.
He's got a big schlong.
And obviously he's not going to come out and deny that. Never correct a mistake in your favour.
Oh no. That's Sun Tzu, isn't it? He's making mistakes, don't interfere. That's the old Keir Starmer approach as well.
No, that's never interrupt your opponent when he's making mistakes. Which doesn't seem to have worked for Keir Starmer, but that's a whole other story.
No, that's a whole other kind of fish. But I think there is this similarity with David Cronenberg, and you could almost call them a kind of school of filmmaking in a weird way, because they both embody this hyper intensification, explore topics related to capitalism,
sexuality,
modernity,
violence,
sexuality. Very much. Like Crash, because it's a ballad novel, a really unsettling ballad, very very hard to read, and Existence, which is again corporations and looking at the violences of corporations. I think there's a lot of parallels between them. Maybe superficial. I don't. I think they share more than that, but I think that it's a similar language, and you get a similar vibe off them. So I just think. Go on.
Yeah. Do you like Showgirls?
I'm really hoping you wouldn't ask me that. I don't know. Like,
I mean, this is a movie review podcast, and at a certain point we might want to find out what you think of these films.
I give it 10 Rotten Tomatoes. No, I give it. Do you know what? I enjoyed it. I actually did. I did enjoy it. I enjoyed its absurdity. I enjoyed its energy. It wouldn't be my go-to. If I was sat down with a box set of Verhoeven films in front of me, and I said I've got to watch one, it wouldn't be Showgirls.
Not in a million years.
Because my heart is attached so closely to Total Recall and Starship Troopers, which I think are a better landscape for him to pursue what he's doing, in a way. And Total Recall, which I was rewatching last night, but I was pretty drunk actually last night and trying to watch. I realised I'd watched about 40 minutes of it and sort of fallen asleep. But
it's confusing. Total Recall. I mean, maybe I'm stupid, but I genuinely
no, it's very confusing.
I genuinely don't really know most of the time.
It's a lot of Arnie, just like get in the chopper.
Oh no, he's actually quite a bad actor. Maybe there's some.
He's actually good in. He's good in it though. Do you think Verhoeven's one of those people that's famous for using bad actors? Is that
no? Because I think when he's really good, he uses good actors. I think Basic Instinct has like fantastic performances in it, and I think that no, I don't think that Schwarzenegger's a bad actor, but I think he's limited range.
Great
and
governor.
I did wonder during. I did.
Have you seen Black Book? Because it'd be interesting to talk about Black Book as maybe Verhoeven's most normal film.
I haven't seen Black Book. It's a film he made in the Netherlands in 2000.
Yeah, he returned to the Netherlands and made a film about the genocide and about World War II, about the resistance. And from what I remember, and it's been a while since I've seen it, it does read as a much more conventional historical a history film. It's still bizarre, but it reads as much more normal. Which might be I think he's treating a very different he's treating something that's very close to home, literally, and the material itself is much more, it's one thing to criticize capitalism in general in an inflated and hyperactive way, but to kind of do the same for the genocide would obviously not
it's
not
a whole
read well.
different scenario,
But he's capable, and he's capable of doing that. He's got these levels. So when he can make a quite, as it were, po-faced, quite, as it were, conventional historical drama, and then you see Showgirls. It's not like Showgirls is just the only thing he can do. He's making a conscious stylistic decision to make a film like this and to intensify in this way, and to make it hyperactive. At least that's how I feel. So in that kind of knowing that, seeing a lot of his films, you kind of get that impression that, when he decides to go balls to the wall, as it were, he really does it. Even if, it's absurd, like the sex scene in the swimming pool.
I really like that scene.
It's insane. It's
actually the only sexy bit in that film.
Yeah, I guess so. It's because it's sexy, but it's
you're like, it's not sexy, it's horrible.
It's not sexy. I'm being diplomatic. I'm not going to kink shame you. No, it's because it is like an actual moment of what looks like genuine lust.
That's what I
connection.
mean. Like they actually seem to be having a good time, which I think is like that's what I mean about the acting. Like I think that Showgirls avoid like the Showgirls is a film that doesn't really ever get vulnerable, because it doesn't reach those levels of recognizable desire that he reaches in Basic Instinct and Total Recall. Like in Total Recall, you feel this connection between him and this woman who's supposed to be his wife, and then the other woman who's he's supposed to have had a history with.
And even for Arnie himself.
Of course.
He's had his memories.
Yeah, you feel huge concern for him in that moment. You feel, I mean, in Showgirls, you feel concern for Molly who gets raped, but you feel concern for.
Do you know, I'd forgotten about that scene, and that's
that's pivotal in Showgirls, because that's kind of like that's the last straw for her, and that's sort of the most real bit for me. That bit, because I watched it and I thought I suddenly knew what the rest of the film was going to be. I was like, okay, now. Polly, what's she called? She's called Pollyanna, but she's also called Nomi. She's like
Nomi.
Yeah, Nomi's like, okay,
Nomi
well,
decides that she's
now,
done with it.
if I'm gonna get justice for her, I'm gonna lose my spot at the top, and then she's like, oh god, that's actually how this whole thing works.
Yeah,
and I even though
I can choose to sit aside, and I can choose to take my crown and wear it, because it's on her. It's given to her on a plate, as it were.
And that's a bind that like the women have to face, that the men don't have to face. The men can stick by their friends, but also be successful.
I suppose in a era of #MeToo, etc. I'm not meaning to sound snide there. There is an element here of these showbiz characters who are protecting each other. The rapist in this film is a protected sex offender, and violent criminal, but he is allowed to get away with what he does. The fact he rapes this character in the middle of a party, and she stumbles out of the bedroom covered in blood in the middle of the party, and there's no immediate comeuppance for him. Nomi has to go and seek revenge,
but even then she's kind of
protected. Even
then the revenge is kind of like, it's kind of hopeless, because then she also has to like give up her career, and so there's no sort of there's no real like she has to sort of blow it up to expose it. That felt very, very meaningful, but I think it was basically just not quite as good as it could have been. But like, I also don't like RuPaul or like anything that's got like loads of money and stuff.
The kind of insane glam and performance.
Yeah, like I hate glamour.
Yeah.
I fucking hate glamour. I hate RuPaul. I hate like X Factor. I hate.
Oh yeah,
like,
for sure.
Anything
the performance.
I quite liked Lady Gaga in her early career, but only because what I thought Lady Gaga was good, because she was like the weirdo outcast. She was like
before it became the norm to be weird, like Billie Eilish or whatever.
Exactly. No, Billie Eilish I like as well.
No, I like, of course, but now it's more normal to be a bit of a weirdo.
The weirdos are good, but then as soon as weirdo becomes institutionalized and commercialized,
it loses its teeth. There's nothing to hook up. We've got no flesh in the game, even though there's so much flesh in the game in this film. Whereas say Black Book, it's very easy to sympathize and identify with the character. In Total Recall, the same. Well, maybe not so much like
Starship Troopers. Yes.
Although
I found the romantic line that runs through Starship Troopers very compelling, and I actually felt like if there'd been a little bit less bug splatting and a little bit more,
I love the bug splatting,
a little bit more high school romance, I would have
squished those
Starship
bugs.
Troopers would be higher up in my Verhoeven chart, but it's definitely higher than Showgirls.
Yeah, I mean, I like Verhoeven. I really appreciate him making the films he does.
Yeah, he's great,
because I think it's such a fun catalogue, just to get like cinema back to the basic thing of just enjoying watching a fucking film. Like it's nice to know that you can watch something as balmy and zany and odd as Starship Troopers or Total Recall or whatever, because they're just fun to watch. Like there's so much enjoyment. Even Showgirls, there's so much pure enjoyment, cinematic thrill from watching this stuff unfold, and we're willing, you kind of strap yourself into the spectacle of it, and maybe there's an element of like guilt. So we're like, well, actually, this is a criticism of capitalism, so I'm allowing myself to enjoy it.
You've crystallized it really well, and I think that's my problem with Showgirls, is that a blip in quality has caused there to be like a steep jump from the kind of it's bad to it's good. Because people feel the need to make some kind of political, it's actually got this secret message that's really woke. Like, I don't care, man. I still want to be entertained and moved. More importantly, like I want to feel like something profound has happened. And that doesn't mean everything I watch has to be Tarkovsky, because I love Basic Instinct. It just genuinely like wasn't as well made as Basic Instinct.
No, I think that's it. It's a victim of its grandeur and its spectacle, I think. I'm much more likely to rewatch RoboCop to death than I am going to go and rewatch Showgirls.
RoboCop's a great film about trauma.
Yeah, it's a deeply tragic film from the go. which again, I even suppose, again with Total Recall, is actually a similarity there, because two characters who have their lives ripped out of them.
Yeah.
You know, and Starship Troopers as well, maybe.
Oh, totally. He's basically making the same film every time. It's beautiful. That's the nicest thing you can say about a film director, is that they make the same film every time, like on a deep conceptual level.
Oh no, I was thinking this today when I was I'm writing at the moment about Sergei Parajanov, and just going Madon, going back through he was always trying to recreate the same moment again and again over his entire life, because he was not satisfied the first time. He was trying to work something out, you know, and that's more impressive in a way than having 10 different films which each explore a very isolated, hermetically sealed question, and you can't connect the dots. I like that you can connect the dots with Verhoeven's films.
On that note, I think we've done it justice. There was quite a lot of build up for that film, because I know there's a lot of takes out there, but yeah, there we are. Thanks so much for listening.
Peace out.
Stay calm.
Wear sunscreen.
Yeah, be cool.
Be cool. Hydrate.
And watch Do the Right Thing, actually, as well, which is a great film about a day when it's too hot.
Far too fucking hot. That actually, Do the Right Thing is, you know, just to look at it from that side, no film evokes the feeling of being immensely too warm than Do the Right Thing.
Yeah.
Just in that level, like, it's such a sweaty film.
So sweaty.
So sweaty.
And then watch that Simpson episode that is like based on the hot weather section element of Do the Right Thing, opposed to the racism element.
The most important thing. In
the great canon of hot weather films, you know, I always thought, you know,
the most important thing about is actually Italian American rights in that film. That's what it's all about.
On that note, peace
out. Bye.